And so you're in a place where you have this amazing opportunity. So what's it like to sit in this seat, have this great opportunity? Do you come in and you know exactly what you want to do, or are you kind of feeling it out? So tell us what it's like. What's it like to get that seat, and then how do you approach it?
It's funny. I don't come in every day and think I know exactly what I want to do. I have the light bulbs that go off in the middle of the night, like, what if we could do this? But I think I was agency side prior to flipping over to brand, and I think a lot of people in my network were like, oh, you're going to the dark side. And I was like, and now that I'm on said dark side, I'm like, I actually don't think it's that dark on this side. I know a lot of you guys are obviously brand side. But I think what's really interesting when the opportunity came is it's pizza. There's a universal love and appeal for pizza in general. So I knew it was an opportunity where we could have a lot of fun. And I think what I interrogated before I jumped over was just the opportunity to be able to do something a little bit more with the creative and think about how can we inject that humanity into what pizza means to people, because I'm sure everybody in the room can remember a birthday party or Friday night pizza night, or you buy your first home and there's no kitchen table and you sit with the box on the floor and kind of revel in the fact that you just bought a new home. And so I wanted to find opportunities where we could start to inject more of humanity into the brand. I think in one of my interviews, I took a risk on a response, I think, with our CEO, and he was like, what do you think about our creative? And I was like, I'm going to answer this as a consumer. There's a lot of crust and cheese and pepperoni out there in the world, and like, I don't really feel something from that. Like, it might make me salivate and make me really hungry, and that's important. I have to balance that every day. We can't walk away from the craveability of what we sell, because that's going to trigger transactions. But I want to kind of inject a little bit of cultural relevance and just that human touch into what we're doing at the brand.
Well, you brought up a bunch of very interesting topics there. One is like the filter that you use to determine whether or not that opportunity was right for you. You know, what would you say about, and you talked about going sort of brand side versus agency side. Do you think that there's something specific that, you know, brand side can do to help it make it easier for agency side people to come in? And how can agency side people know when the brand side opportunity is right?
Yeah, those are great questions. I think if the brand has an opportunity where you know that you can put your thumbprint on it and provoke change. I think that was one of the things I looked. Can I actually walk in the door and not walk into a legacy situation where I'm going to get told no a lot, which is always like a risk that you take in the midst of the interview process. But I wanted to feel like I could actually be part of the evolution. If you guys have followed Papa John's to date, you know, we were forced on the backs of a crisis to pivot. And so since 2019, the brand has been taking incredible leaps and bounds, from executive leadership changes to really doubling down on product innovations. And then with me coming on board, it was the opportunity to actually provoke some change creatively and show up a little bit different in the world. So I think that was an inviting opportunity that in 6 months has actually like stayed the course of what I signed up for, which is amazing. I think, you know, for agency people looking to flip over, what I try to do now on the brand side is help my agency partners be as smart as what I'm gaining on the inside. So I think sometimes what I've gained from a business acumen standpoint is I am like deeply entrenched in a very transactional business, and I like really understand how a business works. And I think sometimes, depending upon where you sit on an agency side, you may be held at an arm's or 2 arms length based on what you get from your client partner. And so I've been trying to take pride in being a really informative client partner to make sure that all of our agency partners feel as smart as they can about our business so they can help us evolve along the way.
That's a huge point. You know, one of the things that we talk about is getting goals, not tasks, on the agency side, and really being able to understand how the business works can help agency partners, you know, work to kind of achieve goals. One of the things that you've mentioned too is, kind of a creative ambition and how a creative ambition intersects with an understanding of culture. And so you've had a couple of roles in your, past experience that were really around kind of that intersection between culture and creativity.
Yeah.
What is that space exactly? Because a lot of people use the culture word, but it might mean very different things to different people.
Yeah, I was telling Pam when we were prepping for this panel, she was like, how did you get into this mindset and this space of liking to lean into the cultural innovation? And I stood there for a minute and I was like, let me take you back for a second. I played sports growing up all the way through college. I'm very competitive. So I think when I came into agency life and into the marketing advertising world, the cultural hijacking and finding ways to bring a brand into a space where consumers aren't necessarily waking up and thinking about it and trying to meet a consumer on their level feels very competitive to me. So it kind of like rallies that spark that kind of burns inside my belly. And so I think I gravitated to it. I spent a long time at Mullen Lowe, which was a challenger agency. And so we were kind of built that way, working on brands like JetBlue, where, there weren't a lot of dollars to be spent in TV. So like all we did to build the brand was show up in the world and create these cultural activations. And so I just kind of took a liking to that. It feels, a little bit like a game of chess, but when you can think about the consumer, and I know I've been here for a little bit listening. I was just listening to Fernando talk about, and I was at some sessions earlier this week. I know we all think about data and like consumer first and understanding, but when you can fully kind of take your hat off and embed yourself into their lives and figure out what do they actually wake up and think about every day? Where are they spending their time? And then how do we not just like plop a pizza in the middle of the situation, right? But like show up in authentic ways. That starts to feel really fun. I've got a quick little story of something that we just did. And my friend Adam is in the back who gave me this inspiration. So also like you work for a pizza brand and all your friends literally send you competitive intel or brand intel all the time in your Instagram DMs. So thank you to my network for fueling some of our creativity. But so Adam sends me a DM and he's like, the Kelsey brothers just went on their podcast. It was like minute 19 and a half, I remember. And they're talking about Papa John's and they're having a debate whether or not it's a restaurant or a pizzeria. And it was pretty simple. Like that was the debate. They didn't really say anything about our brand. And I'm like, I walk into the office the next day. I'm like, guys, we got to do something. And we're Tapper agency partners. We go round and round. And finally we decide, they're playing in the Super Bowl. It's 2 weeks before the game. They're going to be a little busy. But the star of the family is Mama Kelsey. And how serendipitous, we have 2 pizzas in our lineup, a Philly steak and cheese, and a barbecue chicken that so very nicely represent the teams playing in the Super Bowl. And everything that Mama Kelsey is wearing head to toe is split down the middle. So why don't we make a pizza for her that's split down the middle? And so we leaned into that in a little bit of a different way and kind of sparked the cultural rally that was going around for the mom. We dropped her pizzas off at her hotel in Phoenix, and then she kind of like took them on tour as she finished out her media tour for the weekend. So it's like taking those little sparks, but then pulling them through in a way that feels like we're not hijacking for hijacking's sake. Like it actually worked. And then, if you were a Philly fan, we hoped you ordered a Philly steak and cheese that weekend. In Kansas City, the same thing. So,
but perfect when you can also pull the product through.
Exactly.
Right. So yeah. I think
we still have to sell pizzas every day.
So one of the things you were talking about is, we talked about culture and being able to activate on that spark and actually being able and willing to do things. Because I think many people would say, there's a million great ideas that never see the light of day.
Right.
So how do you think that you can take your experience and know which ideas are kind of gold and which ideas maybe need more development?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a little bit of like gut meets science, honestly. I think sometimes if you've done enough of these, you can feel it in your gut when something has the right spark and momentum behind it that you think it's going to hit. I also think it goes back to truly understanding your customer. And like, admittedly, we're doing a lot more right now since I came on board to go deeper on who our customer really is and like understanding like, are they actually going to think this is cool, or are we just jumping on a bandwagon because it's a marketing bandwagon right now? So I think it's a little bit of that. And then we're trying to create filters, and I don't like to over-process into paralysis because then you'll never make anything out in the world. But I think having some of those filters to make sure that it feels true to your brand mission and values. The wonderful thing about our purpose at Papa John's is like we love pizza and we're committed to delivering the best pizza in the world. That's a really amazing purpose to be able to push off of. So we're constantly looking for ways that we can just ignite that pizza love out in the world. And that's often the pressure test. Also, my legal person is on speed dial. I text her 25 times a day. But she's good. Like, we keep her in our back pocket early and often to make sure that we're not running up against the legal hurdle. And, sometimes we do get a quick no, but I'm always like, but how could we do this? So that's always important.
But again, that's building a culture of yes, or
that's right.
You can if, and we talk about that a lot. Like we could if.
Yeah.
So just like the final section, right, is around innovation, and we were talking about white space. Whether that's product innovation. You work at a place where you're always developing new products, looking at these opportunities. How based on your experience and your role now, how do you determine what is white space because no one's seen it before and it's opportunity versus what is white space because there's no there?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's often a balance, right? So shout out to our menu innovation team. They are constantly bringing crazy new flavors and never before done innovations to our menu. And then I think what we do on the brand team is we decide, well, what's the most interesting way that we can market that out in the world that feels differentiated, that feels like something that we've never done before, obviously with still maintaining the craft of the craveability, right? We can't go so far right or left that we lose what the product is. And so a couple things there. I mean, so far this year, we launched a line of Papa Bites. They're small little dough balls filled with delicious, they're jalapeno chicken parm, which is my favorite, but we also partnered with Oreo. So we've got Oreo cookie in the middle of them. And one that we have right now is the crispy parm pizza. And so, everybody has pizza on the top. We also stuffed it in the crust. Now there's a Parmesan crusted bottom on the pizza. And so what we realized behaviorally when we were in test groups and people were eating it, everyone was flipping the slices upside down to look at the beautiful golden bottom. And so when we went to go think about the campaign, which it's on air right now if you've seen it, we were like, well, what if we just flipped the family upside down at the dinner table to kind of just mimic that new pizza eating ritual and that new pizza eating behavior. And so those are, there's a lot of commercials of the family sitting at the table, like having, like, enter whatever food they're eating. And so that is not original. But we then therefore took it the next step. So I think we're trying to find ways that we take these interesting menu innovations and then we bridge it over to what we can do with the brand. And not only is it a cool new product that nobody's seen before, but then we bring it out into the world in a different way that nobody's seen before.
But again, always with the product in the center, right? Which is, I think, what we're always looking for. And so I've really enjoyed our chat. And I think, every time I meet with marketers, I'm amazed by, the passion that they have. And I think, Jaclyn, what you demonstrate is, passion for the product, passion for the end user, and then passion for the craft of marketing, including creativity. So if you were to map out, what you want to see happen and what your own goals are, like how do you benchmark yourself to be like, okay, we will have been successful if?
That's a great question. Here's the thing about our category. Pizza, like many other categories, it's very promiscuous. If somebody has a better deal than us this week, somebody's probably going to beat you because they've got a better deal for the week. And so we know that we have to compete with that from a promotional standpoint. But I think what I'm really hopeful for is there is this opportunity for people to wrap their arms around our brand a little bit tighter. When I talk a lot about build brand buzz, build brand love. And I think that people already love the thing that you sell. we just want them to love it from Papa John's.
Totally.
Always. And so we want to be their first choice. We want to be the thing they think about when they're hungry or when they decide that pizza's going to be in the middle of the table. And so I think if we can find ways to grow and build that brand love and then thereby become the most talked about brand in the category, that's my pie in the sky vision for the future ahead.
I mean, what a clear kind of statement, right? You want people to wrap their arms around the brand a little bit more and to know that everybody loves pizza, but how can we make sure that people know that the best pizza is the one that comes from Papa John's?
That's right.
How could we possibly know that?
Well, the best way to know if the pizza is the best is obviously to taste it. So I keep peeking around the corner. I don't think they're coming up yet. But we brought pizza today for everybody. So thank you. It's coming. It's somewhere between the curb and that stairwell over there. I think not yet, but we're going to try and carve out the bar and bring it. It is our new crispy parm pizza, so feel free to flip it upside down and take a look and a taste, but we wanted to be able to bring that to you guys today. So thank you so much for hosting and having us and staying and listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jaclyn. Pizza song's way up. Before it comes up, we have any questions from the audience? Any questions out there? Right over here. Thank you, Jack.
Hey, Jack. I'm Pete Jackson with Next Door. So we're obviously a local neighborhood platform.
Yeah.
With a massive brand like Papa John's, how do you think about building that brand love at sort of the community level, whether it's in the creative as the neighborhood pizza spot that people are going to, or sort of meeting those cultural moments you mentioned, like moving into a new home.
Yeah, that's a great. It might start with the fact I'm having lunch with your team tomorrow. We've had a couple conversations so far. I love Next Door. Huge fan. Listen, I think there's actually a lot of opportunity when you look inside the neighborhood, and obviously we compete with some of those local neighborhood pizza shops that are not in the mass category. We get that. I think it starts with understanding, what does that community care about? Are they the communities that do the Friday night block parties? And how could we show up for that? Is it a community that turns over a lot and there's a lot of new people that come into the neighborhood? I think it really starts with understanding what they're about and how does pizza play a role, not just trying to push pizza into a neighborhood or community, but understanding. And another part of what we're doing is we're growing. We're building more restaurants. We are out footprinted, if that's a phrase I can use, by some of our competitors because they have more locations than us. So sometimes somebody might want our pizza and we're not in their radius. So part of the growth trajectory for the brand is also opening more doors.
Awesome. Question right up front.
Thanks. Hi, Sean Halter. My question is, you're fairly new into the role. What do you wish you knew more about?
Oh, great question. I should add that question.
Yeah, that's a huge question. I think, listen, it's interesting because I think on the agency side, you're hired to try to know a lot really fast. And so when I flipped over the brand, I was feeling very urgently that I needed to do things and have an opinion in a meeting. And everyone was you don't need to talk in this meeting. And I was that's a weird thing when you're used to needing to have a point of view in an agency side meeting, right? And so I really, really focused on listening and learning. And I also recognize that I'm not done. It's complex. Understand, we're part corporate, part franchise owned. So maybe I wish I knew a little bit more about the franchise model, but they're teaching me. And I think what I realize is be humble about what you don't know. And I think sometimes I was not always embracing of that prior in my career. So I wish I knew a lot more just about how pizza restaurants make money. There's a ton of things I'm learning about the business. The pizza has arrived, everyone.
The pizza is here.
But yeah, just learning, again, being agency side, you don't always get to be that deep in a client's business. So I think that there is just a ton about revenue management and e-deals and franchise structures that like I wish I knew more of. But the fact of the matter is, if you're open to learning it, I think everybody's welcome to teach you to be their smart partner. Yeah.
It's a great question. Question right there. Hang on, the pizza's having a photo shoot right now. Hang on.
Hi, Jaclyn Ruelle with IZEA. When you have the idea